ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you?
It's time to flip a coin and find out.
Well, we need to know what we're calling it for here.
We're calling it to see who's got the best sports knowledge here on the Coin Flip with Martin Kelly
and Jacob Zimmerman.
Flip it again.
And we're back. Another week to talk some NFL football. Jacob Zimmerman and Martin Kelly here in the Coin Flip podcast, ready to break down Week 13 in the National Football League, of course. But as always, we go over our previous predictions from the week before. We've predicted every single game outright, money line style, in the 2023-2024 season up until this point. Martin, we are getting pretty close to 200 total games picked. And, of course, a crazy slate in Week 12. Every single team played this week, no buys. Of course, with the holiday games, the Black Friday game, the Thanksgiving games. Martin, we already broke those down. We did the Saturday episode where we then picked the 12 remaining games. And, Martin, you just about sweeped them. You texted me that you had a 13-win week. You were one off. I'm going to share my screen with you on Discord. Make sure you are locked in to see that as well. But Martin, a fantastic week from you, going 12-4, and I went 8-8. So our season series, Martin, you are gaining traction on me right now. You are just 7 games back. I am 110-70. You are 103-77 through 12 weeks of football. Martin, we like to break down Week 12 as well. We're late in the week here, but real quick, what game stuck out to you the most?
I don't think it was a game, Jacob. I think it was just the entire week in itself. I can't think of, realistically, even if we went back some weeks in this season and maybe some weeks in previous seasons we picked, I can't think of a closer week in scores than this past week in the NFL. 7-point win for the Colts, 3-point win for the Giants, 6-point win for the Bengals, 7-point win for the Titans, 3 for the Texans, 9 for the Falcons. Obviously, the Cardinals and Rams game, that was the blowout. The 17-point win by the Broncos, that was another blowout. But the Eagles winning by 3, the Chargers winning by 10, the Bears winning by 2. I mean, you look up and down the schedule of this week, minus 3 games, every game was within an inch of each other, one-score games. It was a fun week to watch when it came to red zone. The Eagles-Bills game was the best game of the week. No one saw the Raiders going up 14-0 on the Chiefs early in that one. The snooze fest of a Monday night game, that was boring. The Bears being the first team to win a game with no touchdowns. The Steelers-Bengals, finally the Steelers ran for 400 yards. The Giants-Patriots, Tommy DeVito, and that homemade cooking that he gets in New York from his mom worked out. Gardner Minshew did enough to beat Baker Mayfield. The Texans just came up short. That was a fun game to watch. The Saints looked like the poor old Saints again. It was just a fun week.
Martin, I'm not going to let you gloss over that Bears game. I think that's the story of Week 12 to me in my eyes, Martin, because this was the first week in our entire series, Martin. You went months of picking the Bears in every single game, outright to win. Martin, you picked the Bears to beat the Chiefs. You picked the Bears to beat the Lions. You picked the Bears in every way imaginable, and then when they were under the brightest lights on Monday Night Football, when you had nailed some Monday Night Underdog picks this year, Martin, the Bears win. They get one of their few victories, and Martin, you hit it, my man. You hit the Bears. You hit the win as far as your team, but you missed the pick. That's what I meant to say. But that was one of the only picks that you missed all week long. So a thrilling week for Martino, a subpar week for me. Martin, I was kind of rolling through our weeks. Martin, you've now won 3 weeks in a row, 10 through 12. Also, some other things I've picked up on. As far as our consistency combined between both of us, we have to give ourselves a pat on the back here because, Martin, I have only had 1 week the entire season under 500. You've only had 2 weeks in the entire season under 500. So we have been pretty consistently Go about 500, a little bit better here on the Coin Flip podcast with our outright money line predictions. We give you some spreads every now and then as well. But yeah, Martin, some good games there from Week 12. The Chiefs with a big-time comeback. We both were pretty confident in the Titans getting a close victory against the Panthers at home. We both hit on that. The Ravens handled business. We were pretty confident in them against the struggling Chargers. The Jets have been abysmal. We both hit on the Dolphins, and of course the Cowboys back to Thanksgiving. So Martin, without further ado, Week 13 in the National Football League. I'm going to start the timer, and you are going to start things off with the Seahawks at the Cowboys. Dallas is a monster favorite.
Yeah, Dallas is a monster favorite. Looking into this game this week, Dallas is just as banged up as the Cowboys coming into this game. Early reports for practice. The Cowboys might miss Dante Fowler due to an illness. They might also have a questionable Micah Parsons. There's an illness, so there might be a flu bug running around in Dallas at the moment. Seattle has injuries. Leonard Williams is hurt. Will Dissly is hurt. Kenneth Walker is still hurt. They're all questionable to come back in this game. Derek Young, who's also been a little bit of a decent receiver for the Seahawks, is questionable as well. So Seahawks are walking in with some injuries into this game. Like we said, the Cowboys are a -9 in this game at the current moment. It opened up at -11, so they gave the Cowboys 2 more points on the spread. I'm taking the Cowboys in this one, regardless of maybe some of the illness bugs that are running around with Dallas. If it's just Micah Parsons and Dante Fowler at the moment, then their offense won't be affected by it. The Cowboys are the better team. Seahawks are not a very good third down offense or defense and give up a ton of running yards. So if the Cowboys can keep their consistent running game going and their defense is stifling enough to keep Seattle in tough third down situations, I see the Cowboys winning.
Yeah, Martin, the Cowboys have certainly picked up some steam as of late. The Seahawks are kind of what we expected, a team that's in the playoff hunt, not a team that's really going to run away with the division or anything. But so you're rolling with the boys here, Martino. I think that's the safe bet. I think that's the pick I will go with as well. While I think the Seahawks will keep it close, I think the Seahawks will cover. A 9-point spread actually surprises me. And I think that spread here on a Wednesday is telling us that, it suspects that, Micah Parsons might tough through. He might find a way to go. It's the middle of the week. Normally the Friday and Saturday practices are the really ones that matter in the injury report. I mean, this is the Cowboys' best bet to try to do anything they possibly can to, get back in this division race. Although it might be a wrap. The Eagles with a monster win last week. Now, against the spread in Week 12, favorites were 11-4-1 against the spread, so they dominated. I don't see that being the case this week, but I see the Cowboys having enough to get it done. The Seahawks are on a 2-game losing streak that might drop to 3, although it kind of seems unrealistic. That close loss against the Rams, a big loss, last week against the Niners. The Cowboys are rolling. They're on a 3-game win streak. And a lot of those opponents haven't been necessarily great. They've been blowing out a lot of teams. But if you're blowing out the bad teams, you're doing something right. I'm going to go with the Cowboys as well over the Seahawks. So 2 for 2 on the boys. Martin, moving down to the Chargers and the Patriots. Los Angeles is a 6-point favorite in what could be a layup game, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know. And with this game, I thought long and hard about it the last couple of days, and the only way I can describe this game, Jacob, is you're given the choice of death if you're sitting on your deathbed by your doctor, which is, do you want to suffer a slow and painful death, or do you want it just over and quickly? That is how you describe these two teams. The Patriots are the quick death when you know for a fact there's no way in heck they're going to be competitive. You might as well just get it over with now. You already know the result. And it is over. But with the Chargers, it's a slow and painful death. You have to watch every single quarter, every single minute to see how they're going to blow this, to see how they're going to make this game even worse than they've already made it. And it's even more hilarious and more of a struggle for Chargers fans to accept every single day when they have to watch Staley be their head coach of a team that deserves to be better. I'm going to take the slow and painful death. I'll take the Chargers in this situation. The Patriots are done. Bailey Zappi will not get it done versus the Chargers. If the Chargers lose this game, though, I don't just think Staley should get fired. I think the entire city of Los Angeles should kick the Chargers back to San Diego, kick them out of the new stadium, and make the Spanos stay in Los Angeles and not leave the state of California ever again, because they do not deserve another football team ever again. Give me the Chargers in this painful game.
Martin, in the busy city of Los Angeles, I'm not even sure that many people are aware of what's even going on with the Chargers. But you hit it on the head once again with this game, with your funny analogies. Martin, this is the frustrated fan base bowl, I'll call it. The Chargers have legit concern, for their fan base, because this is the same story with the Chargers year in, year out. Good roster, they underperform. Patriots fans, I don't want to hear it. You've been the most dominant team of, the last 2 decades in the NFL. You can have a bad season every now and then. I'm going to roll with the Chargers as well, Martin. There's 7 combined losses between both of these teams heading into this game. I don't think the Chargers are going to fire Staley midseason at this point. I think they would have done it already. I picked the Patriots against the Giants last week because I thought it made sense. But DeVito, threw up the Italian, signature hand symbol all over the field in just an ugly game. Martin, I don't think I can pick the Patriots again the entire season. It would have to take a complete turnaround for me to maybe do that. It would maybe have to see Bailey Zappi get on some sort of a roll. I think you cannot start Mac Jones in this game at all. There's just no chance. Give Bailey Zappi a full 60 minutes to try to find something out, because this locker room is going to give up on Bill Belichick sooner or later if they haven't done so already. So we were both agreeing so far on our 2 predictions here on the coin flip. On to Arizona and Pittsburgh.
We might deviate in this one. You might pick the Cardinals. I'm going to say right now, I'm picking the Steelers in this matchup. And the reason why I'm picking the Steelers, Jacob, is because if we saw what happened last week with the Cardinals, when you put real pressure on Kyler Murray and when you give him a nothing of a running game and your defense can't stop a nosebleed, the Cardinals are just even worse with Kyler on the field. It's nice to see Kyler out there. And maybe the Cardinals will realize that actually put some talent around him might actually get him some real wins. I'm taking the Steelers. Their pass rush is too much for this Cardinals offensive line. I feel like the Steelers have finally found a click on offense with gaining for more than 400 yards for the first time in 58 games last week. They just didn't put up enough points against the Bengals. I'm taking the Steelers in this game in what I think they could blow out the Cardinals.
Kyler Murray has looked decent since coming back this season. 2-to-2 touchdown interception ratio, 66 of 107 on the season. But there's just not a huge sample size from Mr. Murray quite yet, and he's going to be up against the best defense that he has faced so far in this young season for him. Cardinals, even with Murray back, haven't scored a lot recently. Last 2 weeks, they've combined for just 30. Now, I've listened to a lot of betting experts, a lot of people who follow the league closely, stay up to date with a lot of trends, repeatedly week in and week out say the Steelers can only get away with being the luckiest team, arguably in NFL history, for so long. But Martin, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep, waiting for the Steelers to fall, especially when they had their first 400-yard offensive game in years, seasons. I think it's since 2019 or something like that. I could be totally wrong on that, but it's been a long, long time since the Steelers have had a 400-yard offensive game. Now, you only put up 16 against the Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals, but you were on the road. You come back home to what was Heinz Field, Acrisure now. Martin, I think the Steelers also get it done. I'm not going to pick against them. This would be the wrong time to pick against the Steelers when it seems like things might be, shaping up. And it's crazy to say that things are starting to maybe shape up for a team that very well could be 8-4 next week. That's how unconfident people are in the Steelers' playoff abilities. And I'm not necessarily agreeing with that or disagreeing with that. But yeah, Martin, I'm going to go with the Steelers as well. Kenny Pickett doesn't even have to outperform Kyler Murray. A lot of times we like to say what quarterback is the best in this matchup. That team often wins. But when the Steelers' defense is this good and you have a guy like George Pickens on the outside, a guy like Jaylen Warren who can, find a way to get to the end zone. Najee Harris had his best game in weeks. Martin, I'm rolling with the Steelers as well. On to the Colts and the Titans. Who do you got?
I am going to go with the Colts in this game. If you look at the Titans' history a little bit, so they have won one game in their last two. They have 2 wins in their last, I think, going back to the Ravens of October. Their 2 wins are coming over 2 terrible average teams. They beat the Falcons by 5 on that crazy first game by Will Levis, and obviously they beat your Panthers that got Frank Wright fired. But if you look at also that stretch here, Jacob, of their 4 losses during that stretch, they lost to the Jags, they lost to the Bucks, they lost to the Steelers, and they lost to the Ravens, teams that have an above-average offense and a really stellar defense. The Titans have had issues running the ball even with Derrick Henry this season, and they've had problems pushing the ball even with a Will Levis, who's maybe a little bit of a better passer at this point than Ryan Tannehill. Because of that, I'm going to give the Colts the edge in this game. The Colts defense came out and played really well against the Buccaneers. They got to Baker. They put a lot of pressure on him. They got a sack late and a strip sack late to close that game out. The last time these 2 teams played, Anthony Richardson was healthy, but he got hurt in that game. Zach Moss had a big game at home. Give me the Colts on the road. The Titans feel like a team that's done to me, but they also feel like a team that could flip this game, but I'm taking the Colts.
I think I'm going to manufacture our first disagreement here. I was thinking about the Colts, but it's enough of a toss-up where I'll take the Titans here, Martin. The Titans lost to the Colts earlier this season in Indianapolis, and that, that's kind of something that you can fall back to. That's kind of one of the trends that you can look at, just one of the themes year in and year out in the NFL. A lot of divisional teams split, and especially, divisional teams will pick up the win at home. These are meaningful games. Tennessee's not going to make the postseason or anything, but they're totally going to get up for a game where they think that this game might end up costing the Colts the playoffs. They will totally get up for that game. Mike Vrabel will fire the guys up. Martin, you mentioned Derrick Henry. I remember, I think in weeks past, I said that the Titans also had not ran the ball quite as well as we had thought. He's still over, 4 yards a carry, 4.2. Kind of still similar around what he's put up in his prime. And we know that Derrick Henry definitely comes alive late in season, so I don't want to write him off just yet. I think this is going to be a Derrick Henry type of game. Now, the Titans have not been able to get up to a double-digit lead. They've been able to do that kind of in the past here or there. They kind of sneak out to a quick 7-0, 10-0 lead, control the clock, keep running it. Derrick Henry hasn't had these big monster breakaway runs that we've seen all over SportsCenter time and time again this season. He just hasn't had that. I'm thinking maybe this game breaks that trend. Will Levis, he's had some nice flashes. Maybe he can spark it again. I just sense a lot of, non-trust in this Colts team. I don't trust them going forward. I don't trust them to win games down the stretch of a regular season to launch themselves into the postseason. I think it's a divisional split. Martin, I got the Tennessee Titans, hoping they pull through for me. On now to the Broncos and the Texans, 2 teams that are hot as a blowtorch.
Yeah, as hot as a blowtorch. I don't think you can describe it any better than that. And I know we have another big game on this schedule that's, projected to be the best game of the week. If you ask me, this will be the best game of the week. This will probably be the closest game of the week. You're talking about two teams that have won games this year that haven't won, I don't think, a game this year by plus 2 touchdowns. Let me take that back. The Broncos have won by plus 2 touchdowns, but there hasn't been too many games of that this season. They beat the Browns. That was a team with no quarterback. I mean, you brought it up last week, Jacob, of the stretch for the Broncos and how many games they've gone with close wins and stuff like that. In this game, I'll take the Texans. The Texans are the home team, and yes, they lost at their last home game, but they have been very effective at home this season, beating the Cardinals at home, beating the Bucks at home, beating the Saints at home, beating the Steelers at home. And so they've been really good at home this season. They know how to protect Southern Texas. So I will take the Houston Texans in this very close game. The Broncos defense is strong. The Texans don't have their starting left tackle. They just came out with the news today that one of their starting left offensive linemen is out for the rest of the season, so that does hurt the Texans. But C.J. Stroud in this spread offense will make the Denver Broncos really challenge their defense, and I'm betting on that. Give me the Texans.
Martin, was it Laramie Tunsil?
No, I'll pull up the name right here. Give me just 1 second.
I don't see it on the injury report, but I know that they don't necessarily fill them in all the time for the season-ending injuries.
Yeah, I have it right here. It's Titus Howard. Titus Howard is expected to miss the rest of the season. He's one of their starting offensive linemen. So
that makes things more interesting, Martin, because I like the Texans in this game as well. Yeah, you mentioned that Broncos point I had before last week. They had won 3 out of 4 by 2 points or less. I think I'll stick with the Texans. I think Laramie Tunsil's been excellent. I think the Texans' offensive line has improved more than people want to admit. I think the buy-in down there in Houston is tremendous. Now, the players are really starting to buy in there in Denver as well. Sean Payton, he's looking to maybe get the last laugh. That loss to Nathaniel Hackett and the Jets was a crusher. Not even to mention the 70-20 loss. I like fading the Broncos here again this week. I know it didn't pay off last week against the Browns. I think maybe that happens if, the Browns stay a little bit more healthy in that game. Martin, give me the Texans as well. I think C.J. Stroud is really making a push here for MVP, even as a rookie. His numbers are undeniable. Give me the Texans against the Broncos as well. Lions at Saints. Detroit -4.
I'm going to take the Lions in this one. I will not beat around the bush in this one. And my point towards this is the Lions have been on a real serious revengeful attitude towards the NFC South. There's very few teams in the NFL this season, Jacob, that have an undefeated record either in divisional play or against other division in the NFL, and the Lions are one of those teams. They're 3-0 against the NFC South this year. They combined to beat the Falcons and the Bucks 40-12. Both of those were 20-6 scores, and unfortunately, Jacob, you know as well as I do how unfortunate the loss was for the Lions and the Panthers in that blowout of a game. So with the fact that the Saints still look like a struggle on offense, and as much as I want to give them props for their defense for being strong this season, the Lions overall feel like a better team just in this matchup. If the same Lions offense comes out as it was against the Bears and the Packers, I will be wrong in this pick, but I'm taking the Lions just because they are the better team. They should be the better team. They're the 3-0. They have a 3-0 record against the NFC South. That should pay off and give them a sweep this season against the NFC South. I just hope the Lions don't show up like they did against the Bears and the Packers. They should have lost against the Bears, and the Packers' loss should have been worse than that. I'm still going to bank on the Lions.
I feel like there's a lot of signs to point to that could say that this could be a trap game for Detroit. We know that home New Orleans crowd can get really into it, Martin. We know that Jared Goff, doesn't necessarily do great against, elite defenses with a lot of pressure, and that's what the Saints can offer. Now, when the Saints lose to the Falcons and it's not close, that to me is worrisome. That to me traditionally, the last 5-10 years has been a low-scoring, close dogfight, and when you lose that one, there's a lot of sirens that need to go off if you're the New Orleans Saints right now. This is the team that I think a lot of people picked to win the NFC South. You take a look at someone like Derek Carr and the season he's had. It's been underwhelming, Martin. It's been underwhelming. It's one thing that, you can look at the stats and say, oh, well, he's got 10 touchdowns, only 5 picks. But he's really not in a position where he is affecting the game all that much. And not even 7 yards, per average, just 230 a game. Kamara, he has the great statistical stats on the career matched up with Christian McCaffrey. But Martin, I'm going to roll with the Lions here as well. I think the Lions have been solid enough. I think there's too many red flags around the Saints. Even though you could look at this as a trap game for Detroit, they're on the road. They're still a favorite somehow. I don't know, Martin. I don't know. There's not much to this game other than that in my eyes. I'm going to roll with the Lions as well. So on down to the Falcons, speaking of them, and the Jets. Boy, this will be quite the offensive showdown, huh?
You know what? This would have been a quiet offensive showdown. Maybe you say, I don't know, if Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan were back in their primes and playing for their teams right now. This would be a fun matchup. This would probably be a Sunday night game. Jacob, you didn't see the news this morning, the bombshell news that everyone was waiting for. Aaron Rodgers getting lifted off the IR report. He's off the list. He is now active on their roster. The Jets are working on cutting a player this morning to make room for him on the roster. He will not start. The reports are he will not start, obviously, but there's a possibility that he might start next week for the Jets. So this will be the last week for anyone who wants to pick against the Jets for a win. The Falcons will win this game as much as the Jets have the better defense. The Falcons have a slightly better offense just by default with a quarterback. As much as I want to believe in the Jets can pull out a win before Aaron Rodgers comes back, as long as the Falcons don't shoot themselves in the foot, give the ball to Bijan Robinson and find Kyle Pitts and Drake London only a few times in this game, and as long as Riddler doesn't look so lost in the backfield, the Falcons will win this game up in New York. Give me the Falcons.
Yeah, Martin, hard to disagree with you. I feel like you're getting a lot of these right out of my book as well. Martin, Desmond Ridder, he's not a good quarterback. He's probably not a starter going forward for any team that wants to be, even a playoff thought. Atlanta's defense has been solid. I think, the skill guys, even if they aren't putting up some great numbers, I think, kind of by default, they are, some good dummies out there for Atlanta. If they're not getting the ball, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson half the weeks, Drake London. But it's the Jets, man. It's the Jets. Are we going to pick Tim Boyle? Are we going to do it? No, we're not doing it. Yes, Martin, I did see the news about Aaron Rodgers. He's off the IR, but I don't think he's going to play for the next couple of weeks. I just don't see it. I don't think he's, just because he's off the IR, I don't know if that means he's 100% yet. And I don't see him actually going to suit up at 100% if he does. If he does, he'll probably be like 85, 90%, if that. The Jets' offensive line is suspect. And if the Jets lose this week to the Falcons and they go down to 4-8, there is no reason for Aaron Rodgers to come back and step into that situation. There's just not at all. I get it. You want to get more game reps. it's just not worth it. The risk to reward here is not there. And this game is going to be centered a lot around the Aaron Rodgers talk. So that's kind of what I focused with for my prediction on this game. But I'm going to still go with the Falcons. We know the Jets defense is really, really good. But I don't see them, scoring multiple touchdowns, their defense. So Atlanta will win this one, maybe a 13-10 slugfest. So Martin and I both agreeing on the Falcons pick. We really haven't disagreed much here. Dolphins and the Commanders, though, one of the biggest favorites of the week, if not the biggest favorite, actually is Miami on the road at Washington.
Yeah, there's no wasting time on this one. We already know the Commies are going to lose. The Dolphins are the better team. This is basically like last week with the Commies versus the Cowboys. They just don't have anybody on defense. They simply do not. I mean, that defense went from being subpar average with Sweat and with Young on that defense to just basically being worse than the Patriots defense at this point. And that's a hard bar to drop down to. So I'll take the Dolphins. They'll roll. They'll be ready for next week. It's just going to be ugly. I think Eric Bieniemy has done enough this season with a terrible Commies offense to prove that he might deserve a head coaching job or a more of an upgrade of an offensive coordinating job. If he can do this with the Commanders, a legit team that has no Andy Reid ties to, I think he can even make a bigger statement next season. Give me the Dolphins in this matchup, though.
The Dolphins seem to kind of teeter-totter throughout the season. They'll have a disappointing loss to the Eagles, close game to the Chiefs. Take it out on the Raiders. Really take it out on the Jets. The Dolphins are a team that you never know what you're going to quite get. We've seen the roller coaster of the season that they've had, but it's mostly been a lot of success. I'll pick the Dolphins here as well. The Commanders, though, have some nice players. I feel like they have the capability to be one of those teams that, squeaks out some kind of meaningless wins at the end of the regular season with no playoff hopes. Sam Howell, Martin, he's leading the league in passing yards. It sounds crazy, but I did see that. 3,339. They're dropping him back a lot. And if you are attempting a lot of dropbacks with Sam Howell, especially early on in the game, especially, when you're on your own territory of the field, Martin, I could see a lot of 3-and-outs happening for the Commanders. And even if they have some successful drives here and there, even if, Brian Robinson and Harry McLaurin have nice days for my fantasy team, I think Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill are going to be too much. The Cowboys just put up a monster offensive performance, 45 points. Tyreek Hill could go for 200 yards. He very well could. He needs that game to kind of, almost lock in his 2,000-yard quest. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins as well. No more time on that one. Moving on now to the Panthers, Martin. You going to pick my Panthers again against the Bucs?
No, and I won't waste too much time with this one. I'm taking the Buccaneers, and this game, Jacob, isn't about the Bucs or the Panthers. Obviously, the news of Frank Reich getting fired this week. Everyone's speculating on why or how, and all the reports came out about the draft and the picks. To make this real short, I'll give you all the time. If you want to put more time on that timer, Jacob, and vent, I'll absolutely go ahead. Frank Wright lost a power struggle. He threw the season away. Ownership was not happy that he was throwing the season away. The Panthers at times looked like they were not prepared. They didn't even look interested in playing on Sunday. If this is true that Frank Wright threw the season because he's throwing a fit about not getting C.J. Stroud, that's a legit reason I'm firing him. The teams look better with a new coordinator, though they haven't won. But still, Frank Wright deserved to get fired if he threw a fit in the entire organization and just quit on the season from preseason game 1 until now. That's a man that deserves to get fired. Nonetheless, I'm not wasting time. Give me the Buccaneers.
Martin, you're taking the Buccaneers. comments on the Panthers here, Martin, since this is the platform to do it. Martin, my friend Callan, you know Callan, another Dixie State guy. Callan texted me after this news went down, and he said, no coach is going to want to be the coach of the Panthers. And I said, Tepper's not done a great job as far as the PR lately, how people view him in the media. And he very well might go and find another college coach, again, who's had no experience in the NFL. Or, bottom line, the Panthers needed to win games this year because they didn't have their pick. That needed to be the entire mindset for this team, for this season. And it just feels like the ego of Frank Reich kind of got in the way. Martin, I saw some reports that the more people started to question his play calling within the organization, the more that he wanted to hold on to it, and the worse the play calling got. It's a horrific look, Martin, because we fired head coaches and back. He's been fired back to back, Reich. We've just been getting rid of coaches left and right over the last 5 years. We've been getting rid of quarterbacks left and right, deservedly so. Martin, we needed to find a way to win with Bryce Young this year because you guys are going to get Caleb Williams, maybe Marvin Harrison as well. Although you guys are starting to win some games. You need to be careful now if you want Harrison. But long story short, the Panthers and Bryce Young, very disappointing season. Martin, if they go 1-16 this year, or 2-15, I think that's the worst NFL season of all time because you don't get your pick and you fire your head coach midseason. I don't know. But as for this game, Martin, I'm going to surprise you here. I am going to take the Panthers because I think this locker room is going to be the most fired up they've ever been. Last year, the Panthers rallied off some late season wins, and I believe they actually covered their regular season over-under. While now that will not happen, it's impossible now to. That's how bad their season has been under expectation. Martin, I think they win this game. Baker Mayfield, he is hobbled. He's got an ankle injury. Baker will play through the ankle injury no matter what, and it might be worse than having Kyle Trask out there. It might be worse, a super injured Baker. Brian Burns, he can rush the passer. Martin, outside of that, our defense has been hobbled all season long. But give me the Panthers here in a victory morale for Carolina. We need it. So we are going to disagree here on this pick. But moving on now to the 49ers and the Eagles, the best game of the week.
Yeah, it's the best game of the week. The Eagles coming off the miraculous win over the Bills in the fashion they did it. It was a fun game to watch, even though I was at work at the time too. I was listening to the game. It was fun to listen to. I could not believe some of the Bills' play calling and decisions towards the very end of that game when they had it in their grasp, and they let the Eagles steal it again and go to 10-1. The Eagles should consider themselves lucky, and that's why I'm taking the Niners. The Niners this season, Jacob, if you go back to their 3 losses that we had on them early in the season, Jacob, they did not have their all-pro left tackle, no all-pro wide receiver, no all-pro running back at the time, and now they have all 3 back. Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey are all off on the running. That offense is back to what it was. Chase Young hasn't been the most dynamic addition to the defense as they projected it to be, but he's still effective. That defense is still stellar. Yes, the Eagles are a very tough team to knock down, even if you have them down 10 points or 3 points or 7 points. Just ask the Bills again. Nonetheless, the Niners are the more better team. This will not be Jim Johnson, Christian McCaffrey, and Brandon Ayuk trying to come up with trick plays in the NFC Championship game. This will be fully a healthy Brock Purdy who will come with revenge. And I think people are about to see why the Niners are going to be the Super Bowl winners, and I think this is the statement game for them. Yes, the Eagles are 10-1. Yes, the Niners are 8-3. But again, when you have your full entire healthy offense, there's no one that can stop the Niners in any way, shape, or form. I think they have booked their ticket to the Super Bowl, and I think this game will be the statement one that says that they are the better team, regardless of the records. Give me the Niners.
The Niners being favored kind of shocked a lot of people. But I think I might roll with San Fran as well. Eagles fans might not like to hear that, but Martin, looking at the recent games for Philadelphia, now we know that winning close games is a skill. It can be lucky, but when you do it this consistently, it's a skill. However, can you do it for that long against these many good teams in a row, Martin? I don't know if the Eagles win close games against the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Niners 4 weeks in a row. That might be the most impressive 4-game regular season stretch of all time. But Martin, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think I can, lock that in. They've won all those games I just said, plus the Commanders game, by one score. Not 1 point, but within one score. Meanwhile, San Fran, in their last 3 games, has won all of them by at least 2 scores. So, Martin, I'm going to roll with the 49ers as well. I think they're the hotter team. I think that the Eagles have really made a case that they should be the most confident team other than the Chiefs going into the postseason. But the Niners, in this moment, are healthy. And they have Brock Purdy, who's arguably better than he was last year. And Jalen Hurts, who's arguably worse than he was last year. I'm going to go with San Fran as well, Martino. I think they get it done on the road in a Game of the Year candidate. But I think the Philadelphia Eagles have had just, too many physical games of late. And I think, they might end up taking a week off here. They might. They just might. Browns at the Rams, 2 teams that are trying to make wild card pushes.
Yeah, and I think out of the wild card pushes, the team that's going to make the wild card push here will be the Rams. Look, we saw the Browns, and yes, they were 7-3 walking into last week, and all Browns fans are looking. Oh, look, all we have to do is just win 3 more games at least. If they got to 11 wins, they would be an automatic playoff team, regardless if they were a division champs or a wild card team. Legitimately, 11 wins will get you in. Minus 1 year where the Cardinals won 11 games and they were out of the playoffs, but that was a stellar NFC year with a lot of teams winning 12, 13 games that season and 14 games in that year. The Browns are a fun team, but Myles Garrett almost had a season-ending injury. Was throwing out his shoulder last week against the Broncos. Again, I mentioned it last week, Jacob. As much as I love DTR, and he's going to be a solid backup and might be a potential starter one day, he does not have the offense by reins at all. They tried to run it. They tried to throw play action. They tried to do all short patterns. They tried to do enough medium patterns to open up that offense. The Broncos weren't buying on any of it. The Browns offense is going to struggle again with DTR. I don't know if they can come up with a better game plan. Aaron Donald's going to have a feast of a day. The Rams offense is healthy. Cooper, Kyren Williams, they're all back. The Rams will be the better team in this matchup. Give me LA.
Martino's taking the Rams. I think I'll take them as well, Martin. I think I'll take them as well because their season is on the line every single game that they've played over the last couple of weeks. A big win, close win against Seattle. Monster win against Arizona. Martin, I made a terrible prediction picking the Cardinals to beat the Rams last week. I will not pick against the Rams 2 weeks in a row, especially off of a performance like that. This Browns team, I don't really know what to make of this Browns team half the time, Martin. Even with the worst passer rating in the league, throughout the whole season, the Browns as a team have had the worst. They are still in position to get into the postseason and maybe even win a playoff game. Their defense is that, all time. But we see this every once in a while. We see like a team like this maybe once a year, maybe every other year who, is above 500 by a couple games that just doesn't have the quarterback spot figured out. And every year it seems to bite them in the butt. So I'm going to go with the Rams here, who have Matthew Stafford coming off of a hot week. Kyren Williams is back. He looks really good. They can win. They've proven that they can win even when, guys like Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp don't have monster individual performances. They can put up monster numbers as a team. So Martin and I both going with the Los Angeles Rams here. Martin, Chiefs and Packers. It's Kansas City favored by 6 on the road.
Yeah, you already know where I'm going with this one. This will not be a week I pick Southern Canada. I will leave the Southern Canada fans to figure out how they can find some way to twist this game and call it a possible upset or whatever. But however they try to melt their cheese and make themselves feel happy about it at the end of the day, that's Southern Canada's tradition, not mine. Anyway, KC will roll over them. As much as Southern Canada has some good weeks this season, surprising some teams this year, and some wins against the Chargers, against the Saints, against Chicago the first week. That shouldn't have happened. So with all of that, the Chiefs will bounce back and they will win even after the miserable failure of the week before with the Eagles. Kansas City will not fall to Southern Canada. The Chiefs will win.
Yeah, Chiefs will win this one as well, Martin. I've already penciled this in. Not too much to speak on here. I think Kansas City understands that this is now the stretch of the season where you kind of got to lock in. Now, it's not the postseason yet, but you kind of got to get into the postseason mindset. And you don't want to have these games where you're clearly slacking off in the first quarter here down the stretch like we just saw last week in Las Vegas. As for the schedule for the Chiefs after the Packers, they got the Bills, but then after that, you could argue it's pretty easy. They got the Raiders again, Bengals without Joe Burrow, the Chargers, who are a mess. They'll still be a mess by that point. Who knows what the Bills game will be about, but Martin, the Chiefs will probably win this game, and I think they're on track to win about 13, 14 games. That turnaround was pretty meaningful last week. I think that tells me that the Chiefs could, once again fall down this week and still bounce back. Although I think if you're Andy Reid, you like to clean that first quarter up. So no more time talking about this one. Jordan Love, nice story this season. They may or may not hit their over-under of 7.5, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Chiefs as well, Martino. So on to the Monday Night Football game. Jacksonville -8. This would have been a quarterback battle with Burrow, but it's Browning instead.
Yeah, it is Browning, and that's kind of how every Bengals fans feel every single day. They wake up looking at the schedule going, ooh, the Bengals are back. The Bengals, oh, that's right, it's Browning. I feel bad for Bengals fans. They fought so hard for this season. They had to go through the rough stretch of the first part of the season. And then Joe Burrow came back and looked like the hero that he was in LSU. And it looked like they were on a roll. And you know what? Just them small tendon muscles in your hands. You know it, Jacob, being a DB, me being an offensive lineman, we don't get those type of injuries. But still, when you don't have your hands well protected and you leave them open for helmet hits or hand hits or stuff like that, fingers bend back, and there's those tendencies, those tendons in your hands are very sensitive, so they can bend back and just tear easily, and it's painful, and you can't get over it. It's a really sucky injury to recover from because there's just nothing you can do but just sit there and let it heal. So I feel for Bengals fans. Get prepared for next season. Joe Burrow will be on a revenge tour. It'll be fun to watch that next year. But the Jags will win this one. The Jaguars are bouncing back just at the right time. They will win this game. But I do feel for Bengals fans. This is not the season they wanted.
Give me the Jags as well, Martin. I was confident on the Jaguars before this season. I thought they would pass their 9.5 win total. I thought they were kind of the clear favorites to win the division. And while the Texans have kind of came out of nowhere, the Jags are still the Jags, and they're going to get it done against the Bengals. Trevor Lawrence, this guy had one of his best games of the season last week. That's good to see. ETN, we know what this guy can provide. I think the Jags, what they're missing is kind of an elite defense, and this would be a great game to, try to hold a team as close to a goose egg as possible. Maybe the Jags win this one 28-9, 10. They could win this one pretty big, and it'll probably be one of those another one of those Monday night games that is over by halftime. But Martin, I think in prime time this year, Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, the over-unders have almost all hit under. So that tells me that this game is, probably going to be, a stink fest, but the Jags will still find a way to win by at least 8 points in my book. So that is the Coin Flip Podcast, Week 13 predictions, and of course, Week 12 reaction. Martin, I am hoping for a little bit better week from me. Martin, you are hoping to replicate the weeks that you've had over the last 3 weeks. You've been quite dominant. But we got 6 bye teams. Quite a lot of teams on the bye. Martin, I'm going to talk about just one team. I'm going to talk about the Buffalo Bills. At this point, there is half the NFL world is talking about the possibilities for the Buffalo Bills to, come back late in the season here. And then the other half is talking about, the Bills season is completely over. Kind of forget this season for a moment for the Buffalo Bills, Martin. The Buffalo Bills, maybe not their coaching staff, but maybe it's time that the general manager and the owner have a conversation here in the bye week and just think about what does this team need to do in the off season to turn things around. They don't need to rebuild, but they need to reload with a different kind of bullet, Martin. They need to come back a different way. Now, their defense needs to get healthy. You got a new OC. I think the Bills need to make a change, and I think it'd be a great idea to see the Bills get a little bit more stable in the run game, especially outside of Josh Allen, and make a trade for a premier running back. I'm talking about like a guy like Derrick Henry, Martin, to just give this team as much, chances they possibly can at a Super Bowl, if that's what they're going to do. Or you think about maybe going the other route. You trade Stephon Diggs, you try to get a lot of good picks, and you try to do maybe what the Chiefs kind of did with Tyreek Hill. Maybe it's not a one-season flip around, maybe it's a couple seasons, but all in all, the Bills need to think about what to do for next season, because it's kind of obvious that you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting to win the Super Bowl. Martin, you choose another team to talk about here for the bye teams, and we'll get this one wrapped up.
I don't know if I'm going to talk about a team here, Jacob, but I will subtract the Ravens from this entire group. The Ravens being the better team out of the entire group that have a bye week. You mentioned the Bills, and I really like that statement there. We'll see what they do with Stephon Diggs in the offseason. Sticking with that, the Bills, the Bears, the Giants, the Vikings, the Raiders are all teams that can finally give their fan base 1 week off and can allow them to sleep and can allow them to enjoy a Saturday night instead of having anxiety from the day before because they know they're going to wake up and they're going to see something that just completely makes their jaw drop. And not in a good way, because it's either going to be the most horrific play you ever seen in your life, or it's going to be like the most, oh my God, did we just win that? And that is exactly how those teams have been playing this season. So for those five franchises to get a bye week and to get a rest and to get a break is a good thing for all their hearts and their minds. The Ravens are on a hot run. They're right there with the Jags and the Dolphins and the Chiefs for the number one seed in the AFC. It is the closest race in the AFC for the number one seed we have seen in years, considering how dominant other teams have been with that number one seed. We'll see what they all look like coming out of the bye next week, but out of those other five franchise fan bases, they deserve this week off.
So that's the Coin Flip Podcast. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly going back and forth here with every single pick in the NFL season. 13 weeks through. Martin, we're going to see how these Week 13 picks play out. We only disagreed with each other, I think, twice this entire podcast. Definitely the least on the entire season. But nevertheless, we'll end up with similar records, and hopefully we both go pretty darn close to what's going to be 14-0. 13-0 with not as many games this week. We will find out. Picks here on a Wednesday. Catch us back next week for Week 14 and, of course, the Week 13 reaction. And who knows, maybe another NBA video or something. But have yourself a great day. See ya.
Peace.